The mouse. The computer mouse. One of the most enduring input devices of all time, probably second only to the keyboard. While it's evolved since its inception in the 60s, adding more buttons, going from tracking with a ball to an optical sensor, the basic modern blueprint of a mouse has been pretty straightforward for a pretty long time. Left and right click, a scroll wheel, and a sensor for tracking movement on a relative X and Y axis. Despite its apparent simplicity, there has been no shortage of innovation, be it vertically aligned ergo mice for better comfort, wireless mice that charge while you use them, or fancy high-end gaming mice with holes, expensive metal alloys, or sometimes barely any shell at all in the pursuit of weight savings. There's also more specialized mice, built for more niche use cases. Stuff like mice with a number pad on the side, usually for MMO games, like the Razer Naga, Phone in the Own. Or how about mice with trackballs on the side, built for people who prefer that in certain programs or have RSI concerns. Then there's mice that just kind of suck. Apple has a strong heritage of making bad mice that generate a lot of discussion. From the ones with only one button to whatever the this thing is. Of course, there's the Magic Mouse, everyone's favorite Apple product to make fun of. You have to flip it on its back like a struggling turtle to charge it, but at least it's EU-compliant USB-C now.
Magic Mouse.
The Magic Mouse. Ergonomics. Well done. And was key.
Then there's mice that are just weird for the sake of being weird. #DopeTech. Check this one out. Okay, hold on. Check it out again. You used to call me on my Skype mouse. All of these mice have one thing in common though. None of them mess with the most basic function of the mouse, the click action. Now take a look at this mouse that I have right here. Although it looks like 20 years old, you might think it's normal, if not outright boring and not worthy of discussion. But I'm here to tell you that even compared to the Skype mouse, this has to take the prize for most unique or different, because it changes such a fundamental aspect of the mouse in such a radical way that I don't think anyone else has ever done.
So like, you know, like on a normal mouse, insane.
In my previous video, I discussed my love of Topre switches and Realforce keyboards, which utilize a unique mechanism called electrocapacitive. What I did not mention in that video is that the Topre Corporation, being a weird Japanese company, decided to put this switch into a mouse, and it's weirder than anything I discussed in the keyboard video by a factor of at least 5. Now, if you haven't already, I'll wait for you to watch that video so you can understand what a Topre switch is. Okay, so you're not going to do that. A Topre switch uses a rubber dome to provide tactile feedback, which may sound similar to a membrane keyboard, but differs by not being bad. It's a much higher quality rubber dome with a more consistent and precise feel, and it doesn't need to bottom out to register a keystroke thanks to its use of a conical spring, which lives under the rubber dome that is detected by a sensor on the PCB. Hence the good feeling of oneness with cup rubber as described on the packaging, as well as on my commemorative sticker, which you can find at my sticker store, shop.digitalghetto.net. I've got other stickers too, all designed and stocked by me, like Joeyland Signature, that's a fun one. I've got Can I Have the Nitrous Today? That unfortunately continues to be relevant, but it's supposed to be a double entendre. I made it bumper sticker size so you can put it on a car, and it's like Fast and Furious kind of nitrous, like your car is asking for the nitrous. Free Range Mutts for the dog girls out there, and Sangheli Exclusionary Radical Covenant for the Halo fans, but there's plenty of other stuff too. Currently shipping in the US only, although I am scrambling for my life to figure out a way to do international shipping affordably. I see a ton of people visiting the site from Europe and elsewhere. If I figure that out, I'll update the pinned comment. Outside of liking and subscribing, this is the best way to help support the channel and future video production. Links will be everywhere, I'll make it inescapable. Thanks, and let's get back to the video. Okay, so they put cup rubber from the Topre Realforce keyboards into a mouse, and I don't think a lot of people know about this. Even for people who know what Topre is, I feel like this is a deep cut, but I guess we'll find out in the comments section. According to the Topre Corporation, this was the world's first mouse to use electrocapacitive switches. It was announced in 2020, then discontinued at some point, only to be brought back in 2023. Back in 2020, I of course wanted one of these. I liked the idea of both my left and right hand being enveloped in cup rubber, but it was just too expensive, and at the time, difficult to source. While it's now listed for sale on mechanicalkeyboards.com, that was not the case last year when I picked mine up. I didn't want to pay the markup that resellers on eBay or Amazon were asking for, so I went ahead and proxied it myself from Bic Camera. If you're not familiar, it's a massive electronics store in Japan. Like, they have everything, a whole floor of nothing but endless refrigerators, every rice cooker known to man, cameras, of course. It's not just electronics either, they'll have toys up in there, model kits. One time I saw one that was called Bikuro, like it was a Bic camera connected to a Uniqlo, and they mashed up the names and logos. And they play this theme song randomly over the intercom. It goes like... Personally, I'm more of a Yodobashi guy myself, but both are great, and if you're entertained by a video like this, visiting either is a must if you find yourself in Japan. Okay, I'm supposed to be talking about the cup rubber mouse. Anyway, after about 17,000 yen and a bit of waiting, I got the mouse. Originally, my reason for wanting this beyond pure curiosity was to incorporate it into the keyboard video, but after using it for like 5 seconds, I knew this abomination deserved more than a brief cameo appearance. There's definitely rubber domes under there, which was the mission statement, of course, but the reality of it is somehow even more bizarre in practice. I can't find any confirmation on the switch weight. The press effort feels close to 30 gram, which is the lightest keyboard Topre switch, but it's tighter in feel. You can tell the diameter of the dome is smaller than on the keyboards. The travel distance feels shorter, and the breakpoint in the dome is almost non-existent here. My suspicions were confirmed when I found this making of article, which was originally in Japanese but will be displayed on screen with Google Translate. Apparently, they just wanted to try making a new product and decided on doing a mouse. That required reworking the Topre design, which not only necessitated a significant miniaturization of the Switch, but an adjustment to travel distance. Looking at it torn down, the plunger-like design is even more obvious than it is on the keyboards, and I'd imagine they did some stuff here to make the press feel more consistent over the much wider surface area of a mouse click. Every other mouse switch, at least that I'm aware of, uses the same leaf spring design that clicks when depressed and pings again when released for auditory and tactile feedback. This holds true even on fancy optical switches that cut off a beam of light to register input instead of making physical contact. Topre rubber dome switches notably differ from that by having absolutely nothing in common whatsoever. The designers say that the aim here was to make a mouse that was in line with the feel of the Topre Realforce keyboards, something entirely new. Keyboard-style switches in mice are not an incredibly common thing, at least in my experience, so I did a little bit of digging. I found this DIY project that uses MX-style switches. It looks like the bomb from Counter-Strike or Potato GLaDOS. I don't know, there's a joke in there somewhere, I just can't find it, but I had to see this thing, so now you do too. I also found this goofy novelty mouse that uses MX-compatible keycaps, but mouse switches and keyboard switches typically don't overlap all that much, or really at all. Why is that? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious to anyone who's ever used a mouse. When you think about mouse clicks, what do you imagine? From the most aggro ADHD gaming mice all the way down to something as lethargic as the Apple Magic Mouse, probably something clicky, sharp, tight, precise, short travel, light to actuate. I think even a layman could pick up on the fact that it's a very different experience from even a mechanical keyboard. But we're not even talking about conventional mechanical keyboard switches here. This is Topre, which brings to mind adjectives like supple, smooth, pillowy, bouncy. Now I sound like I'm talking about a different kind of cup rubber. But anyway, pretty much antonyms to the ubiquitously clicky mouse switches that we're all used to. Whereas on a keyboard, cup rubber provides a welcome al dente suppleness that is both responsive and comfortable. On a mouse, it's just weird, kind of nasty. If I pulled up on the street and handed this to you, you'd probably react in verbal disgust. Even in the interview article, the creators themselves admit that it's weird and won't appeal to everyone. The travel distance feels longer than any mouse I can remember using, like in my entire life. That precise clickiness on a normal mouse, you're not going to find that here. The click action has almost a width to it. It does not feel particularly precise, and you can make the plastic piece on top of the switch wobble as you go down. I wouldn't go as far as to describe it as mushy, but it's definitely soft, there's no way around it. And probably the most profound side effect of making a cup rubber mouse is that there is no clicking sound. There's almost no sound at all. If you were looking for a near silent mouse, here it is. It's indisputably very good at that, probably the best that exists, even better than those silenced Logitechs. So if you're BYOM to the library or something, this is it. For everyone else though, it's just kind of off-putting. It's yet another way this subverts your expectations of what a mouse feels like. Overall, it just feels slow to use, like your input is being processed through molasses. I did a reaction speed test with this mouse, and it consistently performed slower than literally any other mouse I have with normal clicks. It's not a perfect test, there's the element of human error here, as well as this being run in a web browser, but I was consistently hitting 150 to 170 milliseconds with a $25 Logitech G203 and a $300 Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. With cup rubber, no matter how hard I tried, I was getting 170 to 200, which is a significant delta for such a simple test that involves nothing other than pressing left click. Does this matter? Depends on what the objective is here. While this was never outright labeled as a gaming mouse, every feature it has and is advertised with are gaming mouse features. PixArt PMW3360 sensor, the shape, the weight, the RGB, the adjustable DPI and polling rate and software. If you look at this on paper, you would 100% get the impression that they think they made a gaming mouse. However, when you look at it, that's maybe like the last thing you would think. Save for the RGB logo, its design is more reminiscent of a Microsoft IntelliMouse than anything you'd see in a 2025 Amazon search for gaming mouse. So then how does it feel for gaming? Well, horrible. It's quite easily the worst gaming mouse experience I've ever had. Now this thing has many flaws which prevent me from enjoying it as a gaming mouse beyond its use of cup rubber. The shape is this larger, unwieldy ergo shape akin to a Logitech G703. I just straight up can't aim with it as someone who uses a fingertip grip and prefers smaller mice. But I also feel like this is a very dated shape for a gaming mouse generally. Serious keyboard and mouse gamers, as well as the peripheral manufacturers themselves, have very decidedly moved away from this type of shape in the past 5+ years. It's also not ambidextrous, so if you're left-handed, get lost, I guess. It's also on the heavier side. I wouldn't say it weighs like a brick, but compared to the Superleggera competition, it's yet another area where this feels like taking a step 10 years into the past. One of the stats proudly listed on the product page is the 83-gram weight, excluding cable, which, again, not the worst ever, but not an impressive stat on a $100+ mouse. The cable is notably bad as well. I don't demand wireless out of my mice. There's plenty of ways to do a wired mouse that feels essentially wireless, but this is not one of them. This cable is bad, it gets stuck, and it is actively distracting, especially if you were trying to game with it. But surprisingly, one of the most actively anti-gaming elements here are the skates. I mean, look at them. They look like a computer lab mouse from the 90s. They're way too small for the surface area, they glide very roughly on my smoothest pads, on my Artisan Shindenkai it feels like it's cutting the pad, and the hard plastic lip on them catches dust and debris which only further adds to the abrasive tracking feel. The sensor on this thing is fine, but dated at this point. There's nothing obviously wrong with it or the way it was tuned. You get standard DPI adjustments via a button below the scroll wheel. The issue is that the flaws from the rest of the mouse, the size, the shape, the skates, inhibit your ability to track precisely. But all this is really a distraction from the rubber-domed elephant in the room. It was shocking to me when I saw they made a Topre mouse, and for gaming, I just knew there was no way it could end well. For FPS, it feels sluggish, it feels imprecise. Whatever the dome is in there, it's low weight, so it feels almost linear. Feedback from a mouse click is something I've never really thought about that much because it's just always been there, but taking it away makes for a vague, disconcerting FPS experience. Combine the lack of tactile feedback with the lack of auditory feedback as well, and you just can't tell if you made an input sometimes. It almost feels like there's significant input latency. I mean, maybe you could play a MOBA or Diablo or an RTS with this, but any kind of shooter, third or first person, is a joke. It's like those streamers who beat From Software games with Donkey Kong drums. Look at how small their official mousepad is. They're just not serious about gaming, despite what they said in that making of article. And it's not just that it's bad at gaming. The build quality here is also not amazing for how expensive the mouse is. Being a weird Japanese company, Topre products have a tendency to feel like 20 years old in a usually charming way, but this is not really charming, it's just bad. It makes creaking sounds like in normal use without trying, and take a listen to the side buttons as well. These side buttons have the honor of being the worst side buttons I've ever felt. They feel worse than a $25 Logitech, like immeasurably so. And the scroll wheel, it's like what I had as a kid in the 2000s. The sides have this rubberized soft touch material on them, which is a pet peeve of mine. They've held up fine for the year that I've had this thing, but will inevitably degrade and become nasty someday. The top shell plastic is actually alright, there's zero shine on it, but it's a dated eggshell finish I've felt much better on other mice. If you dig way back on my channel, you'll see that I've reviewed mice before, and off camera I've owned and used even more than that. I have never once used a mouse and felt that the click action was notably awful. Maybe a little sloppy, poor tolerances between the body and the panel on top of the Switch, but never, ever to the point where it was significantly impacting my ability to play. And this goes even for $20 mice. It's hard to imagine a mouse being worse than this from the perspective of gaming, because it's so glaringly bad at something so easy to get right. For a third the price, you can get mice that will make you infinitely more competitive than this one, which actively makes you worse. To put it in perspective, in that latency test from earlier, there was no appreciable difference between the clicks on a $25 gaming mouse and a $300 one, while cup rubber totally messed me up. Is it the worst mouse ever in general? Kind of depends. If you're expecting that sharp, precise click input that pretty much every other mouse that exists has, then it may very well be, but I have found a place for this thing in my life. For desktop productivity use, I've actually come to love having a Topre switch on a mouse. All of the benefits of the Topre switch design, that smooth feel with an assisted rebound, makes this the most comfortable, non-fatiguing mouse I have ever used. Double clicks feel like nothing. The kind of sloppy play in the switches that make them feel too imprecise for gaming makes clicking and dragging in Adobe Illustrator feel effortless. Even the shape and size. Horrible for modern competitive gaming, but it feels like a big lazy boy sofa anchor point on the desktop. Basically, what's going on here is that they made a comfort productivity mouse, but some guy who never played a game in his life thought that they needed to take a shot on the gaming mouse product segment. The issue then is that since it was seemingly geared towards gaming, it's lacking the feature set and build quality that you'd see on something like a Logitech MX Master. If they took this Switch and gave it that feature set, it might be able to find a niche. In its current form with its ostensible gaming aspirations, it is completely unrecommendable to anyone other than the craziest Topre and Realforce fanatics who will enjoy it as a novelty for 5 minutes. Unlike its keyboard cousins, this thing just has no place in the world, not even a small one. Any mouse would be a better buy than this, and although I kinda see the vision when it comes to productivity and desktop use, the comfort aspect of the switches is held back by how abysmal the rest of the mouse is. But it does have the honor of being potentially the most unique mouse experience you can have. It changes something that to my knowledge has never been changed to this degree before, but perhaps that's for good reason.